None of us there expected that big mob, and without the escorts, like I said, it would have been ugly because they were, I guess you could say, the dividing line.
Finally approached the people who I thought were actual escorts, you know, who had all the pro-choice paraphernalia and signs. It was like meeting unfound family or something after many years. They were unbelievably helpful on not just a security physical level, but on an emotional support level. And they said we can either try to sneak you in through a back door, which had been blocked also, or we can wait and methodically, slowly go through the police line. And I said I wanted to go through the police line. They locked arms, and they started walking, and I was in the center of their locked arms with my girlfriend. So there were two people in the middle of either 6 or 7 people. And the closer I got to the clinic, the more it escalated. A lot of people just kept saying, "Murderer, murderer," and a lot of people were yelling more of a pleading kind of thing that you could hear from streets around. And when the man had lunged out of the crowd at us, it scared me. I mean, it scared a lot of people.
Tear him apart. Tear him apart. That's very pro-life.
2 of the escorts went down, so did my girlfriend who was with me. I turned around to help them. They said, just go in, just get inside the clinic, which I did.
Every once in a while, a patient will come out after I've escorted her, and she'll come out a little bit later, and she'll thank me for being here, and she'll say, you know, look, I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm glad that you're here. And one person said, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here.
If the antis want to lobby against abortion, if they want to march, if they want to write letters, whatever, that's fine, more power to them. This is a democracy. But when you start interfering in someone's private life and saying, I'm going to tell you what's right and wrong, here, me on this sidewalk, and I'm going to get between you and your doctor, that is so against everything I've ever been taught to believe about privacy and dignity and respect for other human beings, that I feel like I can do nothing else but be out here. And I'll be out here as long as it's needed.
We'll help us out. We'll help you keep your baby, man. I believe that it's so long. We'll help you.
Three, two, one, stop testing. 3, 2, 1, stop nuclear testing. How's the sound, person? Have we stopped testing those god-awful nuclear weapons? If the DOE says it's so, then it must be so. Hi, my name's Jose, and I want to welcome you to Politically Correct Cooking. Before we begin the show, though, I must make a little commentary. Walking through the streets of our fair city, I've noticed a lot of hatred going on. A lot of black people saying nasty things about white people, a lot of white people saying nasty things about black people. Well, looky here and listen up really well. You got to treat each other with compassion, you got to treat each other with understanding, and to paraphrase the immortal Connie Chung, I want to whisper a little secret in your ear. Love your enemies. It really gets them confused. Now, on with the show. We got a heck of a show today. We have representatives from an organization that should not exist, but they do. Please welcome, from the Washington Area Clinic Defense Task Force, Adam and Kristen. Come on down. Howdy.
Nice to see you.
Nice to be here. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
I guess the clinics are closed today, so you have some time off to make it to the show?
Yeah, we're free this morning.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, clinics. It's in the news all the time. A lot of violence going on. Just a terrible situation. We want to discuss that, but before we get into that, we got all this food laid out. What's on the menu?
Okay, the menu today is potatoes and chickpeas in a curried yogurt sauce.
Sounds good.
Well, I hope it will be.
What do we have
make
to
no
do?
promises. All right. The first thing we need to do is start chopping up these potatoes, but also if you can start slicing, we should have ginger and red pepper there and garlic as well.
Okay, I could take care of that.
All right. let me
Now,
get the
for the
potatoes
folks
out.
at home, we have potatoes steaming.
Yeah, we pre-cooked the potatoes just to make it a little faster. Otherwise, the potatoes might take a little more time to cook than we have time for on the show today. So, you can start cooking those, Kristen.
Okay. We'll give Kristen that honor there.
Get rid of this stuff.
Now, Kristen,
Yes. Whoa. There we go.
I know this question maybe might be a hot potato for you, but the clinics. On the news, a lot of clinic blockades, a lot of people screaming at each other. What exactly is going on, and why is this going on?
Well, what you see on the news is clinic blockades, and that's where you usually have large events where large numbers of anti-choice people will come to town, and they will try to physically close the clinics, either by putting objects in front of the clinic or by putting themselves in front of the clinic. Those usually involve hundreds of people. They're very large events, usually centered around some kind of controversy. Most recently, the anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision.
That's pretty much every year. there's a
Right,
big
it's been
event.
an annual event for the past 20-some-odd years, since the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. So that's something that you tend to hear about very often. But WACDEF is out there more than just for clinic blockades. We escort at local clinics every single weekend. We're there to protect the patients, we're there to help keep the clinics open, we're there to help the doctors, and make sure that things go smoothly.
Have things been going smoothly lately, or is it, does it change from week to week depending on what's going on?
The character changes depending on who's there, but I have to tell you, things are tense. With the lots of violence at the clinics, people are worried, people are scared, patients are scared, doctors are frightened, and even the escorts are a little bit on edge. But we're doing our job. We have people who are out there who are dedicated, who work to really put the patient first and make sure that they get any services they need.
Now, you work on Saturdays.
Right.
What is a typical day for you? Do you have to get out there early or
Yes.
stay late? Or
Your Saturday morning does not involve sleeping in when you are a clinic escort. As an escort, you need to get to the clinic between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. Hopefully that way you arrive before any protesters or patients. We then send the clinic defenders, really the clinic escorts, to different places around the clinics, and we wait for patients to arrive. When we see somebody coming to the clinic who looks like they're a patient, we walk up to them, we ask them, would you like us to accompany to the clinic? If they say yes, we explain to them that there are protesters there today, that they shouldn't be bothered by them, that we'll walk with them, that they can go right into the clinic is open. Just keep a conversation going so they understand that there's nothing to be frightened of, but that they're aware that there are people there so it doesn't take them by surprise.
now, before I ask you about, say, the protesters and stuff, let me ask Adam, the chef, how are things going? Do we need
Things are fine. What I've done so far is just started sauteing some onions in oil. In a minute, we'll add the chickpeas, let those cook for a bit, and the potatoes, they don't need to cook as long since they've been pre-steamed.
regarding the garlic? Do you need more garlic in this?
A little bit more garlic would be fine.
And ginger?
Ginger, just a few quick slices,
Okay.
and the same with the pepper.
Now, as a escort, most of the time you spend escorting instead of breaking blockades.
Right.
So that's pretty much an every Saturday sort of thing. Blockades come in once every couple of months or something to that effect.
Where blockades happen, definitely once a year, and sometimes there are surprise blockades. Every single weekend we have people at the clinics who are there to disrupt the clinic's activities, to make the patients more nervous. These people like to call themselves sidewalk counselors. In effect, they're really hasslers. What they do is they try and yell invective at the patients, tell them, oh, you're a child killer, don't murder your baby, we can help you. They'll tell them all kinds of things to upset them. Their idea is that if they create a diversion, if they make the patients upset, then they won't be able to go and get their services. I mean, these women are going in to have surgery, and anything that disrupts the process adds to their cause. Maybe will keep them from getting their services.
Now, a women's health clinic is not just focused on performing abortions. It performs a wide variety of services.
These clinics, they really offer a full range of reproductive health care services. They do pregnancy testing. Some of them will do pre- and postnatal care. They also will do STD testing and treatment. Some of them treat men. So it's erroneous to think of these places as only, abortion clinics. They're really health centers for women.
And for folks at home, TD is sexually transmitted disease. Okay. Now, what is some interesting experiences you might have had? Because I know I've been watching videos of the people who are the sidewalk counselors, as you call them. Well, you call them other things, but for our family audience, we'll call them sidewalk counselors. I've seen them with megaphones coming right up to people, yelling at them, things like this. What are some of the experiences that you might have encountered?
Well, in terms of people who are trying to create disruptions in that way, the best thing to do is to not pay attention to them, actually, where you really are sort of your own personal peacekeeper, where your effort is to keep things calm in order to keep things focused on the patients and helping them get their services with a limited amount of disruption. So we don't really have any sort of reaction to them in terms of, stopping them from doing anything except for ignoring them or in other ways diffusing the situation.
What's an interesting day you come home Saturday evening saying, "Well, I'll never forget this day for the longest time"? Any interesting experiences you might want to relate to? So there's some folks out there watching the tube that might say, "I might want to volunteer." What might they expect?
Well, if we could just jump in for a minute. A lot of what goes on that we may find humorous tends to be funny because you've been up for several hours and it's very early and no one wants to be there. What you end up a lot of times is standing around waiting for things to happen, and that's when things get a little crazy. When nothing is going on yet, you tend to get paranoid. One of the things we do before a large blockade or when we suspect something might happen is we'll pull people out in cars in front of the clinics in the early morning hours before the escorts get there. That way if anything happens, we can call the police, we can call the clinics, we can call our escorts and get them out in time to make sure the clinic is open by the time patients arrive. On several occasions, we've had a few little mix-ups there. Remember one event, we had two people in front of one of the clinics in Virginia. And our people who were monitoring the phone lines at that time got a call saying, "There's some cars circling the neighborhood, we're not quite sure what's going on." A few minutes later, they called back saying, "There are 10 or 15 cars here, people in them, they're getting out, they're in front of the clinic, send us help, send people now, send people immediately." 5 minutes later, we got a call back saying, "Oops, sorry, they're getting their vehicles inspected at the gas station next door."
Okay. So but at least you have like phone trees, you have all sorts of established procedures to bring help, to get messages out, things like that.
In addition to the escorts we will put out every Saturday morning, we do keep a list of people who can respond immediately if anything goes on. We also have contacts with clinics and for police and for anyone else who needs to be notified in case of something major like a blockade or some very serious hassling or any sort of violent action.
Okay. Well, I got some ginger and some garlic.
Yeah, let me take that.
I just
Sure.
give this to you and let you be in charge of that. And I got a little jalapeno pepper here. Is this part of the show?
Yes, this curry dish needs to be a little spicy, not too much, so only use about a quarter of that.
Okay.
Meantime, I'll add these potatoes. Yeah.
Now, do you do a lot of cooking at home? How did this recipe come about?
Well, after a long day, either at work or at a clinic, it's always nice to have some decent home-cooked meal. I tend to get bored with a lot of more traditional food, so I've started looking into some Indian recipes about a year or so ago. And this curry dish is a combination of hearty, filling, good food, comfort food, and exotic taste, so I just decided after a day at a clinic, you need to treat yourself. What we do is important work, it's vital work. It really benefits the women who are going in for medical services, and it's something that anyone who does should feel really proud of themselves for doing, and so we like to treat ourselves afterwards.
Well, the politically correct cooking show is not exactly, keeping a clinic open, but we're going to be looking forward to the street at the end of the show just to say, job well done.
And make no promises, but we'll try, right?
We'll find out soon enough.
Okay.
Now, what we want to do is, we got a music video. It's not MTV, but we kind of like it. We're going to be taking a quick break here while you're fiddling with the food there. What we want to do, though, before we introduce the video is let folks know that we're using the famous Clinic Defender brand. Okay, let's roll to the video.
We will fight to save the children, no matter what the cause. We're the pro-life Christian army, and our cause will not be lost. We have come from many back ground, many churches, many flocks. We are many colors nations that are built upon the rock. All for Christ to be a witness, no matter what the cost. We're the pro-life Christian army, and our cause will not be lost.
Looking at that video, the names of the people, people who have died, a lot of violence, a lot of injuries. What exactly is going on there? And I want to discuss that, but I know we have a real important part here of the menu. We're putting in yogurt?
We're putting in yogurt. That'll be the basis of the sauce for the potatoes and chickpeas. First I mix in about a teaspoon of cornstarch just to keep the yogurt from curdling.
Okay.
And then the spices, you can use store-bought curry powder. I tend to mix my own. Then just basically mix in about a tablespoon or so and just stir everything up. Fairly simple.
Well, back to the violence at the clinics. I became involved politically trying to stop nuclear weapons, nuclear power. I know that if I go to the Department of Energy or I go to the Pentagon and physically abuse people, I'm looking at, or attack people that work there, I'm looking at 3 to 6 months trying not to be somebody's girlfriend at Lorton. However, at a clinic, the same faces show up week after week. Why don't they go to jail for acts of violence or things like that? What's the deal there?
Well, that's actually a question we would like to have answered a little better than it has been. Part of the reason I suspect is that these are people who portray themselves as good, decent, peaceful, God-loving people who are fighting for the civil rights of the unborn children and that sort of thing. And no one seems to question that or challenge it. What they're doing is not peaceful or nonviolent. It is abusive, it is harassment, it is sometimes physical violence, sometimes emotional violence, rhetorical violence. But that seems to be a message that many people in the political world and law enforcement don't always get. It's something we would like to change, but not much can be done about it directly.
Now, instances of... go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say that a lot of what you see on TV is the big stuff. A shooting happens. A clinic is firebombed. Someone puts butyric acid, a noxious-smelling chemical, inside a clinic, which causes thousands of dollars of damage. But that's only part of it. What goes on every Saturday morning outside clinics all across the country, and what goes on blockades, is violence itself. It is yelling and screaming at women and patients. It is calling doctors murderer. It is comparing them to Nazis and comparing abortion to the Holocaust. It's comparing people to Jeffrey Dahmer. We've seen signs like that in this area. Even those people who claim to be peaceful, who claim to be nonviolent, are contributing to the violence with their rhetoric and their actions.
Can you describe some instances that, like this acid? You were telling me before the show, people somehow get into the clinic, drop these vials in the restrooms and leave, and the foul smell has to close the place down?
Right. Butyric acid is a chemical that smells very much like human vomit. I think it's actually the chemical in vomit that causes the distinctive smell, except they use it in a purified form, so it's a much stronger odor. It is very hard to get the smell out of furniture, walls, or the clinic building itself. So they'll send people in posing as fake patients who may go to the bathroom, dump the chemical, and leave and lock the door behind them. They may try to put it in ventilation ducts. Overnight, they will slip it through the mail slots of a clinic door, or if there is nothing like that, through the lock itself using a syringe. Anything to introduce the chemical into the clinic. It can cause thousands of dollars worth of damage. In some cases, the damage is so bad the clinic has to be closed for weeks at a time before the smell can be gotten rid of.
Any other sorts of examples of violence that...
Well, one of the clinics in this area was bombed just a few months ago in July of '94. The same day as the most recent shootings in Florida, there was a firebomb planted outside a clinic. Unfortunately, it did only minor damage to the outside of the clinic because the police officer happened to be passing by closely enough. If it had not been seen right away, the whole clinic could have been destroyed.
Now, the fact that this bomb went off the same time there were shootings in Florida, a lot of times the pro-life movement will say that they're a nonviolent movement, that the people who actually do the violence are fringe members of it. Is this the case, or is there really a conspiracy of some sort to intimidate doctors to the point where they don't want to perform abortions?
Well, there are some people in the anti-abortion movement who are legitimately nonviolent, but there are many others who only pay lip service to it. And again, through their rhetoric and their actions at the clinics, they promote an atmosphere of violence that allows the more radical elements to act with impunity. If they hear these so-called mainstream leaders talking about doctors being murderers and Nazis and comparing Russia to the Holocaust, that gives them the permission to go ahead and act on it further. In addition, many of the national leaders of anti-abortion groups across the country have actively endorsed violence. In Virginia, there are two people who have signed statements that Paul Hill, the most recent shooter in Florida, was circulating, saying that murder of doctors is a good thing.
That's the justifiable homicide.
Right. There are three people in Bowie, Maryland, who signed the same statements. And there are, again, leaders across the country who have signed these things. So some of these people do try to promote nonviolence, but unfortunately far too many openly endorse violence, and some who secretly endorse violence.
Well, we've got some stuff here sliced up. Okay. Let us know what you might need over here.
Okay, well, at this point, the main stuff is done. We have two last ingredients. A little bit of green pepper just adds some color to it, which we can put in right now.
I'll let you take it.
And the last two things for flavor. Cilantro, which most people in this country don't know anything about, but is the most widely used herb in the world.
Oh, okay.
And a little bit of lime juice as well.
And a little bit of lime juice. Well, I'm going to slide these over there.
All right.
And while you're doing that, I want to ask Kristen, what are some of the things that people have called you as you're a clinic defender?
Well, there's been
that we can use on the air here.
Well, my friends and I have been called directly the personification of evil because we defend clinics and escort women who are seeking abortions. Frequently you'll be called a fascist, you'll be called a baby killer. There's, a whole sort of things that are related to that will be hurled at you and also at the patients who are going in seeking services.
Okay. Now, what, like the violence, there was a list put out, the Dirty Dozen, the 12 doctors, I guess, from around the country that have been targeted by, mainstream anti-abortion organizations. Yet this is like a hit list of some sort that people who, are on the fringes can say, we've got the word, these are who we want to go for. I understand that homes are targeted, families, with these recent rash of shootings. Doctors, nurses, and their associates go to work now with body armor, bulletproof vests, police escorts. It's getting really scary out there. What do you see the future? Is it going to be worse? Is it starting to even out? What do you project for us here?
Well, it's very frightening because, as Randall Terry said several years ago, they look at doctors as the weak link because they're an individual. WACDF is an organization. Patients are a diffuse group of people, but they can have a list of 12 doctors across the country and make their lives very, very difficult and make it a very dangerous situation, a dangerous practice for them to have. What you're seeing is that abortion at medical schools across the country, abortion is no longer being taught. People don't want to learn the procedure because they are intimidated into not going into this field. That's bad news for women who are seeking these services. It's just a terrible situation. It might be legal, but it may not be something that women can actually have. So that's a situation that we're very concerned about. As for violence itself, because there haven't been, strong condemnations from other pro-life groups, from, in my opinion, law enforcement, from political leaders, these people would be encouraged to put out a hit list of doctors across the country. It's not good enough to say, well, I personally wouldn't go out and shoot a doctor, but say it's okay for somebody else to do that. I respect that choice. That's not a choice. That's murder.
And another thing I think a lot of people have forgotten is before Roe v. Wade, illegal backroom abortions, whatever, was one of the leading causes of death for women. Since Roe v. Wade, death by abortion has dropped almost off the listings. So I think a lot of times people seem to forget that at one time abortions were really bad. Now, I know, you know, just listening to you both talk about the violence and stuff, there's like demons loose throughout the country. If Agent Scully and Agents Mulder wanted to get in contact with you to say, hey, we're here to help, what can we do? Who can they talk to?
Well, we are the Washington Area Clinic Defense Task Force. We do provide escorts for clinics throughout the area. We offer trainings on a monthly basis for anyone interested in becoming involved in escorting. They can call our recorded hotline with information about our program. It's area code 202-797-6577, or write to us at Post Office Box 21796 in Washington, D.C. 20009. We do not sell a mailing list to other people. You will not get junk mail from people you've never heard of before. Again, we are an all-volunteer organization. We have no professional offices. We have no paid staff. We exist primarily on the efforts of hundreds of dedicated volunteers and on contributions from some of the same people. So that's the basic quick and dirty version.
Okay, well, we're glad you could all come by. Now, are we ready?
We are ready.
To celebrate a great show here.
All right, everything is done. We have some bowls. Okay.
We have some bowls, and here's a server.
All right.
Okay. And I guess I get to be first.
You get to be the guinea pig.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
All right, well, I hope you all enjoyed the show.
Okay.
I'll find out in a second how good this is. Now, I'm set. I'm all set to go here.
Go.
Great. Well, folks at home, I want to tell you that it smells delicious. It tastes delicious. Adam, Kristen, thanks for coming by. Folks at home, we will see you later. Remember, clinic defenders, they need your help. Saturday mornings, get in contact with them. They sure could use your help. We'll talk to you later. See you next show. Bye-bye.